I am Ibrahim Trayor. Yesterday, an African leader claimed victory with 97% of the vote. The media rejoiced. The international community rushed to congratulate. Observers from the African Union issued carefully balanced statements. Social media overflowed with images of jubilant crowds dancing in the streets, a nation seemingly united. But listen closely. This is not a triumph. This is a warning. If you care about democracy, whether in Africa or anywhere people are told their vote matters, you must understand what that number truly represents. Because this story is not just about Tanzania. It is not about one election, one leader, or one fleeting moment. It is about what we normalize, what we celebrate, what we dare to call democracy, even when, deep inside, we know something is profoundly broken. And most importantly, it is about what we teach the next generation, about power, about voice, about whether their participation in governance truly means anything at all. Let me begin with my own journey. When I first stepped into leadership, I was told many things. The goal is to win elections, they said. The goal is to stay in power, to appear invincible, to silence doubt. Advisors urged me to consolidate authority, eliminate rivals, build a fortress around my position. That is how African leaders survive, they explained. That is politics. But I discovered something different, something that reshaped my entire understanding of leadership. The goal is not to win. The goal is to serve. True strength is not measured by how tightly you control, not by how many fear to oppose you, not by whether you can manufacture a 97% vote. True strength is measured by the space you create for dissent, by the criticism you can absorb without retaliation, by the security of knowing your legitimacy comes not from numbers, but what you deliver for your people. Now, let us turn to Tanzania. President Samia Suluhu Hassan has just been declared re-elected with 97.8% of the vote. On the surface, it looks like overwhelming support, the kind of mandate leaders dream of. Proof, it seems, that the people have spoken clearly, decisively, without question. But experience teaches us something about numbers like these. And I speak not only as a leader, but as a student of African political history. When 97% of citizens vote for you, one of three realities exists. First possibility, you are truly beloved. You have transformed the nation so profoundly, solved so many problems, that even critics say, yes, 5 more years. But this is rare, almost unheard of. In healthy democracies, even the most admired leaders win with 60%, maybe 65%, because diversity ensures disagreement. Second possibility, citizens are afraid. Not necessarily of you personally, but of the system around you. Opposition becomes dangerous. For jobs, for businesses, for families. Fear shapes the ballot. Third possibility, the numbers are not real. Manipulation, whether subtle through media control or blatant through ballot stuffing and falsified results, creates the illusion of legitimacy. And in Tanzania's case, the truth lies not in the 97% figure itself, but in the shadows around it, the context, the events before, during, and after. Because when you see perfection in numbers, you're not witnessing democracy. You are witnessing theater, a performance, designed to project legitimacy without the messy reality of genuine choice. And this difference between real democracy and democratic theater determines whether a nation moves forward or remains trapped in cycles of false legitimacy. Stay with me, Because what I'm about to share reveals a pattern across Africa, including my own country, Burkina Faso. A pattern we must break if we want true change, true development, true democracy that empowers the people instead of protecting the powerful. Here are the facts hidden behind the 97% headline. Fact 1. Citizens died in the aftermath. Not celebrations, but protests filled the streets. People demanded answers, insisting the polling station reality did not match the official results. Some were killed. The exact number remains disputed. An information blackout concealed the truth, but human rights organizations confirmed multiple deaths. Think about this. If 97% truly chose you, who are these people dying in the streets? Are they the 3%? And if so, why risk their lives so passionately? Deadly protests reveal what numbers conceal. Significant opposition. Citizens convinced their vote was stolen. People willing to die for the principle that their voice must count. Fact 2. Information was controlled. Internet access throttled. Journalists restricted, especially in opposition strongholds. Social media monitored. Activists silenced. International observers faced obstacles. Delays, restricted movement, limited access. Ask yourself, if you truly won 97% fairly, transparently, with genuine support, why hide? Why restrict? Why silence? The answer is clear. You are not protecting victory. You are protecting the gap between reality and the narrative. You are preventing citizens from comparing notes, organizing, documenting irregularities. You're making sure the official narrative is the only one that reaches your citizens and the international community. Third fact. Opposition was silenced. In the weeks and months before this election, opposition leaders faced systematic intimidation. Some were detained briefly on questionable charges, then released with clear warnings: push too hard, and there will be consequences. Others were hit with sudden legal troubles, tax investigations, license cancellations, corruption accusations, which conveniently disappeared after the election. Campaign rallies were shut down, citing safety concerns or missing permits. Meanwhile, government rallies faced no such obstacles. Opposition poll watchers were denied entry to counting centers. They were told there was no room or their credentials were invalid, even though everything had been submitted properly. This is not the behavior of a confident government. This is the infrastructure of a predetermined result. You don't need these tactics when you're genuinely popular. You don't need to intimidate opponents, shut down rallies, or block poll watchers if you trust the people to choose you freely. You need them when you're manufacturing consent, not earning it. Fourth fact. The historical pattern doesn't match human nature or political reality. In 2020, Tanzania's previous president won with 84%. That number was questioned but officially accepted. Now, just 5 years later, 97%. Think about what that implies. 5 years of global economic strain, inflation across Africa, development struggles, international pressure, and support increased by 13 percentage points? That's not how human nature works. That's not how politics works. Anywhere.
You participate in the theater because not participating marks you as a dissident, a troublemaker, someone to be watched. That is what 97% really means. It means survival. It means people did what they had to do to avoid trouble. And the tragedy, the part that breaks my heart as a leader, is that this might be happening in a country where the leader genuinely means well, where real improvements are being made, where the government is sincerely trying to help. But here is the uncomfortable truth every African leader must face, including me. Real democracy is messy. Real democracy does not give you 97%. Real democracy means constant criticism, constant opposition, constant accountability. In a functioning democracy, you win with 52%, maybe 58% if you are exceptional. That means nearly half the country did not choose you. They chose someone else. They disagreed with your vision. And that is not weakness. That is democracy. Opposition exists freely. They criticize you in newspapers without fear. They hold rallies without being shut down. They organize without intimidation. They run candidates without those candidates being arrested on convenient charges. And all of that criticism, all of that opposition, all of that accountability, it is not a threat to your leadership. It is the only thing that makes your leadership legitimate. Next election, you might lose. And that possibility, that uncertainty, that knowledge that the people could choose differently, that is not a flaw in democracy. That is the feature. That is what makes it real. Because when people know they can remove you peacefully through voting, they do not need to remove you violently through coups. When opposition can challenge you at the ballot box, they do not need to challenge you with bullets. But when you win with 97%, you have not built consensus. You have eliminated dissent. You have not earned trust. You have manufactured numbers. You have not secured a mandate. You have revealed that the system is tilted, controlled, dominated, so much so that real opposition is impossible. And here is what breaks my heart about Tanzania's situation specifically. President Hassan might actually be doing good work. Perhaps she is building infrastructure, improving education, strengthening healthcare, fighting corruption in some areas. Let us assume her intentions are genuine. But that 97% has made it impossible for anyone to believe it. Because the number does not say this leader is beloved. The number says this system is rigged. And once that message is sent, everything else is tainted. Every accomplishment questioned. Every claim of progress doubted. Every statistic suspected of manipulation. Good leaders deserve real legitimacy. If President Hassan is doing good work, she deserves credit for it. Real credit, based on real evidence, acknowledged by people who had the freedom to criticize but chose to praise instead. But that 97% has stolen that from her. It has replaced genuine accomplishment with manufactured approval. It has turned real support into something that looks like coercion or fraud. Because the number is not just a statistic. It is a message. Do not oppose us. We are too powerful. Your voice is irrelevant. Your choice does not matter. Now, I can already hear some of you asking, Ibrahim, does this not make you a hypocrite? You came to power through military transition, not elections. You were not elected either. So who are you to judge Tanzania's election? And you are right to ask this. This is a valid challenge, and I owe you an honest answer. Yes, I came to power through a military transition. I did not win an election with 50%, 70%, or 97%. I was not chosen through a ballot box. There was no democratic process that put me here. I and others in the military intervened because we believed the previous government had failed the people, because corruption was destroying our nation's future, because our resources were being sold to foreign interests. But that was our justification, our belief. It was not validated by a vote. So who am I to judge Tanzania's election? What gives me the moral authority to critique a process that at least pretends to be democratic when my own path was undemocratic? Here is the difference. I have never claimed democratic legitimacy through vote count. I have never held up a fraudulent election result and said the people chose me. I have never manufactured the appearance of consent to cover authoritarian reality. I claim legitimacy through service, and service must be proven daily, not once every 5 years in a ballot box that may or may not be honest. My authority comes from measurable actions, from keeping promises to reduce foreign exploitation of our resources, from nationalizing gold mines so wealth benefits our people instead of foreign shareholders, from fighting corruption even within military ranks when it is politically costly, from living modestly while others enrich themselves, from standing with the people when it was dangerous to do so. Can I be voted out? Yes. Will I respect that result? I have said publicly that I will. Will I win with 97%? I hope not, because that would mean I failed to create space for real democracy. The question is not how you gained power. Many leaders throughout history gained power through non-democratic means, but then served their people, created space for democracy, and handed power over peacefully. The question is, how do you use power? What do you do with it? And can the people remove you if you misuse it? In Tanzania's case, the 97% result tells us the answer is no. The system has been designed so removal is impossible. Opposition exists in theory, but not in practice. Change is promised, but systematically prevented. That is not democracy. That is authoritarianism dressed in democracy's language. And here is why this distinction matters. Because if we don't understand the difference between a leader honest about how they gained power and one who manufactures fake legitimacy, we can't build real democracy. Real democratic legitimacy is hard to fake if you are paying attention. It comes with certain characteristics: narrow victories or believable margins, strong opposition allowed to operate freely, media that criticizes without retaliation, civil society that organizes without intimidation, and the ever-present possibility that next election the people might choose differently. When you don't see those characteristics, when you see 97% victories in countries where opposition leaders face harassment and journalists face obstacles, you are not seeing democracy. You are seeing a performance of democracy. And Tanzania is not unique. It is not unusual. Across Africa, this pattern repeats so often we have started to accept it as normal. Equatorial Guinea, 95% victories election after election. Same president for 44 years. Oil wealth enriching a small elite while the majority remains poor. Rwanda, 99% victory. Stability and development achieved, yes. But opposition politicians face mysterious accidents or prosecution. That number does not reflect genuine choice. Uganda, 59% in the last election, more believable. But the same leader has ruled for 38 years. Opposition leader Bobi Wine arrested. Supporters beaten. Social media shut down.
Yet somehow, overwhelming support is reported from across the country.
Every time a leader wins with more than 90%, the international community follows the same ritual. First, immediate congratulations, often from nations with economic interests in maintaining the status quo. Then, carefully measured statements. We note the results. We await the observer's full report. Soon after, concerned remarks about irregularities. And within weeks, the world moves on. The leader is treated as legitimate. The cycle repeats. But here is what they do not understand. These are not just numbers. They are chains. Every fraudulent election whispers to young Africans, your voice does not matter. Your vote is theater. Real power is taken, held by force or manipulation, never surrendered voluntarily. And so they stop trying. They stop believing. They stop participating. That is how we lose a generation. Not only to poverty, though poverty is real. Not only to failing schools, though education desperately needs reform. But to hopelessness, the soul-destroying belief that change is impossible, that the future is predetermined, that their voices, their votes, their dreams are irrelevant. When hopelessness takes root, catastrophe follows. First, brain drain accelerates. The best and brightest leave for countries where their voices matter, where votes bring real change, where merit counts more than connections. Second, innovation dies. Why risk starting a business if government-connected companies always win? Why create new ideas if success depends on political ties, not talent? Third, social trust collapses. When everyone knows elections are fraudulent but must pretend otherwise, cynicism becomes the national mood. Institutions crumble, contracts lose meaning. A low-trust society cannot develop. Fourth, and most dangerous, violence becomes thinkable. When peaceful change feels impossible, young people with nothing to lose begin asking, if the ballot box is closed to us, what other boxes remain open? I think of the young Tanzanians who protested after this election. Some died in the streets of their own capital, killed by security forces for daring to say aloud what everyone knew: this result is not legitimate. They were likely in their 20s. They had dreams for their country. They believed their voices could matter. They thought if enough people stood together, change was possible. Now they are gone. Their families mourn. Their friends are traumatized, and the official story claims 97% were happy. How do we honor their sacrifice? Not by pretending the number is real. Not by congratulating a fraudulent mandate. Not by moving on as if their deaths were a footnote. We honor them by telling the truth, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it complicates diplomacy, even when it challenges assumptions about African democracy. The truth is simple. Democracy cannot exist where opposition is impossible. Leadership cannot be legitimate where dissent is deadly. Africa cannot progress while we celebrate obvious lies as achievements. Those young people died believing truth matters more than convenient lies. They died believing real democracy is worth fighting for. They died believing their country deserves better than theater. So what is the solution? Criticism alone is not enough. We must offer a path forward. For leaders like President Hassan, and for all African leaders, including myself, prove legitimacy through actions, not numbers. Allow journalists to work freely even when critical. Let opposition organize openly, compete fairly, speak safely. Give observers full access. Create space for civil society without intimidation. If you truly serve your people, you do not need 97%. You need results they can see, accountability they can trust, courage to face real competition, confidence that your work speaks louder than manipulated votes. Yes, real democracy is risky. Yes, it means you might lose power. But holding power through fear or fraud is not victory. It is delay. And delay always ends badly. For the international community, stop congratulating obvious lies. Your silence is permission. Your acceptance is complicity. Diplomacy does not require endorsing fraud. Engagement does not require legitimizing manipulation. What if instead of immediate congratulations you said, "We note the announced results. We await independent reports before further comment"? What if aid was conditional on reforms? What if democratic principles were enforced, not just spoken? For African citizens, do not accept this as normal. Do not let cynicism win. Do not teach your children their voices do not matter. Every fraudulent election unchallenged normalizes the next. Every ignored manipulation becomes the baseline. Demand better, not violently, but persistently, creatively, courageously. Organize safely. Document everything. Support independent media. Support civil society. Support opposition leaders who dared to compete. Change may take years, even a generation, but accepting that change is impossible guarantees nothing will improve. For young people everywhere, not just in Africa, this is about one fundamental question. Does your government fear you, or do you fear your government? In real democracy, government fears the people, not through violence, but through accountability, because the people can remove them peacefully. That possibility keeps leaders honest. When leaders stop fearing removal, when 97% victories become normal, government ceases to be government. It becomes occupation. I am Ibrahim Trayor. I am not a perfect leader. I make mistakes. I came to power through non-democratic means. That gives me a responsibility to prove legitimacy through service, not numbers. Africa deserves better than 97%. Tanzania deserves better than 97%. Every human being deserves a vote that matters. Not theater, not performance, not a predetermined script. Real power to choose, real accountability, real democracy. Until that day comes, every false landslide is another chain. Every congratulation to manipulation is another betrayal. Every fraudulent election steals legitimacy from leaders who might truly serve. To my Tanzanian brothers and sisters, the world sees you. History will remember who stood for truth. Those who died believing in democracy did not die in vain. The choice is ours, and that choice defines not just Tanzania's future, not just Burkina Faso's future, but Africa's future. If we get this right, we will show the world that democracy can work, that it is worth fighting for, worth dying for, and most importantly, worth building for real, not just performing for show. Thank you.